Welcome back to another episode of First Light, the podcast where we explore stories of transformation, resilience, and the power of making a difference. Today we are honored to have Andrea Lewis, a distinguished trial lawyer and shareholder at Searcy Denny, Barnhart, and Shipley. Andrea has dedicated her career to fighting for justice, particularly for survivors of sexual assault, exploitation, and human trafficking. Her unwavering commitment to her clients and her remarkable achievements in the courtroom have made her a beacon of hope and a true advocate for change. We're excited to dive into her journey, the challenges she's faced, and the passion that drives her to make a positive impact every day. Andrea, I want to thank you for joining me on First Light. For those who may not know you, tell us a little bit about your background as a felony prosecutor and now as a civil litigator, and what kind of inspired you to pursue a career in law, and what drew you specifically to cases involving survivors of sexual assault and human trafficking.
Well, hello, Chris. And first of all, thank you very much for having me. I really enjoy listening to your podcast, so it's nice to be on it and to get to see you. So for those who don't know, I am a former prosecutor. You and I both worked at the same office together for years. But prior to that, I went to Florida State University, both undergrad and for law school. Then I transitioned to the prosecutor's office upon graduating from law school, and worked there as both a felony prosecutor and then as the deputy chief of the county court prior to leaving, and then transferred to Searcy Denny, where I now work in Palm Beach Gardens, or Palm Beach County, Florida, and handle, as you mentioned, many cases involving child sexual abuse, sexual assault, and other cases of that nature.
Well, I know as your time as a prosecutor and doing what you do for plaintiffs, you see a lot, you're exposed to a lot. You have to deal with victims who've undergone things that are sometimes unimaginable for most of us. So talk to us a little bit about how you approach that and how you keep yourself in a good place to be able to handle those types of cases.
That's a great question. It's very difficult work. As I'm sure you remember from the state attorney's office, you're dealing with people when you're talking about crimes on really the worst events of their life. These are things that they then are forced to think about day in and day out for the remainder of their life. And when you're talking about sexual abuse or sexual assault, this is really heavy stuff. And so, I enjoy doing the work because I enjoy trying to help people who have been in these situations, but especially having children of my own, just having to sort of live through this experience with the people that I represent, it does become very difficult, and it really bleeds into your life to some extent. So it's one of those situations where you really need to try to compartmentalize your work, your personal life, so that it doesn't affect you in other areas. But to be completely frank, it's hard not to when you're talking about these types of situations.
How did you kind of come down this path of going to law school, becoming a prosecutor, and now to handle the type of cases that you're handling?
So I don't have any family that are lawyers. My dad owned an air conditioning company. My mom worked for the school board. I really didn't have any lawyers at all in my family growing up. So when I graduated from undergrad, I ended up just thinking, well, gosh, should I go to law school? I considered medical school and ended up in obviously Florida State Law School. And when I was there, I ended up trying out for the mock trial team. And I had no idea what I was doing. It was, to a large degree, it was somewhat of a fluke. Of course, it ended up being something that I enjoyed quite a bit, being able to get up in front of a group of people and advocate your point. It was fun. So that was really my first taste of trial, or courtroom type, potentially a professional career. And that's really what started it all. So I made it down to Palm Beach County, oddly enough, through a mock trial tournament. So I'm not from here either. And I came down here, went to the courthouse. I still, to this day, remember driving through town, looking around, seeing how beautiful it was. And there was palm trees. And it just seemed like like a paradise, really, when I first came. And so I ended up taking a job at the prosecutor's office. And to this day, it was one of the most fun jobs I have ever had in my life. I still think about it frequently. And it was a job that had a tremendous impact on me, even to this day, in terms of the responsibility that you have for not only the victims or the survivors in these cases, but also the defendants, to make sure that you're doing right by everybody. And I really enjoyed it. And still think back on it very fondly. But that's what got me interested in doing the type of work I do now, which is to some extent an extension of that, which is still representing survivors of sexual abuse, representing people who have been injured in a variety of crimes. But now I just do it on the civil side.
And there's a lot of parallels, obviously, between the prosecutor's office and what you do now. But what I want to talk to you about is kind of that career progression for you. You worked your way up through the prosecutor's office to become that deputy chief of county court. You worked your way up through Searcy Denny, become a partner shareholder there. You worked your way up through organizations like the Palm Beach County Bar Association to be the president of the Palm Beach County Bar. So talk to us about those career progressions and kind of how you've approached your career to make those leaps. And also, let me say, by juggling it so well with having kids and getting married and all those types of things as well. So
it's a lot. So to your first question is how do you get there? How did it come of this? With that, some of it was luck, some of it was hard work, and a lot of it was just following my passion. And that's one thing that I have really fallen back on a lot in my life, is when you're unsure about something and you don't know which direction to go, ask yourself, what are you most passionate about? Because whatever the answer to that question is, has always served me very well. And in this case, knowing how much I loved being a prosecutor and representing, or not representing the state, but really carrying out a sense of justice and having a responsibility to do right by the community, by the people who were injured. It was a very satisfying, rewarding job. And it left you thinking and truly believing that every day you went home, you were making a difference. I'm sure you had a very similar experience. It's hard not to have that experience working there. So once I left, and it was a very difficult decision to leave, I came over to Searcy Denny, and of course we do all similar to you all. We'd handle all different types of injury cases, but over time, following that same principle is what am I most passionate about? I just saw myself kind of getting drawn to a different area, which was really helping crime victims and people who have been involved in these horrific and life-changing events. And so through that, and with the support of my firm, I really have started developing kind of a niche here where that's the cases I primarily handle. And it's difficult work, as we talked about, but it is, at the end of the day, it's extremely rewarding to be able to help people who are, many times it's children, of course, who have been involved in these terrible circumstances, and to help them try to get their life back on track. To your second question, which was, how do you do it with children? Now that's a great question. So I have two kids. I will tell you, I don't think there's any perfect way to go about it. For me personally, they are my life. They're what I think about all day long. And I genuinely enjoy being their mother, to the point where I am excited to see them at night, on the weekends, whatever I possibly can get any free time from work. So doing that, I think it's about balance and really trying to focus on what your priorities are. And of course, you got to work hard if you're going to be good at anything. So the work's going to be there, but at some point you got to draw the line. You can't work till 9:00 every night, because you would be shortchanging your kids. And so finding that balance, but I'll tell you, that hasn't been that difficult for me, given that, I am really excited just to get home and see them and hear about their day. So, but it is challenging, Chris. You hit the nail on the head. It's certainly challenging.
There's so many things to talk about with you, but let's go with, you've had some significant victories, and I'm sure you've had some cases that have been, what you maybe consider a defeat. I know you've had appearances on court TV now, so let's talk about some of those challenges that you've had to overcome, and let's talk about what you've learned in both success and what you may have also learned in losing a case.
Sure. Well, in terms of challenges, I mean, everybody has challenges, and for people who are taking a lot on, which I think is certainly you, and I would put myself in that same category. When you're so active in so many different things, you are inevitably going to fail at things. And I really think it's all about perspective. When you do have a trial that doesn't turn out right, or you run for something and you may not have made it, or you just had an opportunity that would otherwise be a disappointment. The most important thing is really analyzing that and looking at it through the lens of, what did I learn? And if I look back on my life about the real challenges that I've had, any adversity you faced, the things at the time that just seemed like, how would I ever overcome this? Those are the things I am now most thankful for, because they shaped you as a person and they taught you things that you never would have otherwise learned. They also really set you apart, I think, to various obstacles that, I have overcome, you've overcome, any of us have overcome in our life. They now allow you to relate to other people in a way that you never would have been able to before. And I mean, how fortunate are we to be able to have that benefit? And so I really think to a large degree, it's your perspective and looking back and being open to, when you hit a roadblock or you hit a closed door, to pivot and to find a path that better works for you. And, that's something that's proved to be, I think, very helpful for me through my life.
What about a specific case or that you've handled that has really just kind of changed you in some way?
A particular case. I had a case with a young woman who was sexually assaulted in a club, a nightclub. And it was a circumstance where she didn't remember anything. There were certainly allegations of that something might have been put in her drink. And it would have been a very, very difficult case to prove. And she was lovely. And it was just something about her. I believed her. I knew she was telling the truth. But we had next to no evidence, really, when I initially got the case. But I wanted her to have answers, because she deserved that. Anyone would deserve that. And unfortunately, the police department who investigated basically threw their hands in the air and said, there's nothing we can do, and basically blamed her for drinking or whatever the case may have been. And so ultimately, it was just roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And one thing that I really learned about that case was how other people, and maybe not intentionally, but how they treated. And this young girl, she was very young, she was in her early 20s, blamed her. They blamed her. And it wasn't one person, it was a lot of people. And it was people in law enforcement, people in the insurance company. It just seemed like every time we turned around, the story would somehow, all the fingers were pointing at her. You should have done something different. You should have stayed with your friends. You shouldn't have drank. It was, all of those fingers were pointing in the wrong direction, and they should have been squarely on the defendants. And it took years, and a lot of challenges, a lot of victories in court, but an enormous amount of time. And once we finally resolved the case, it was for an extremely large number, and she deserved every single penny of it, because what happened to her was horrible. But looking back, and I still am close with her to this day, you really realize it was her strength, I think, that impressed me the most and made me want to get up every day and fight, because this happened to her. And to see how she faced people who were wrong and who would look at her and with very skeptical views of the situation was heartbreaking and frankly infuriating. And it really makes you realize, and I think that's many people in our shoes, I don't like bullies, and I don't like people who are pushing people around that didn't do anything wrong. And I think that it was just a ridiculous situation. But in the end, she came out of this on top. And she's doing very well today. And it was an experience. That was one of the first sexual assault cases as a civil litigator that I handled, and one I think back on often, because I don't think many lawyers would have taken that case solely because of the lack of evidence. And the guiding light, at least for me in that case, was listening to her and hearing her. And I believed her in my heart. And then the way we made the case as successful as it was just using that to kind of guide us in the right direction, which ultimately, we did, and that worked and got the evidence that we needed. But it was largely because of her strength and her sincerity that I think we were able to be so successful.
Yeah, I mean, truly powerful. Those types of cases are extremely difficult, and then also with the mountain of evidence against you, it's tough. So tough work. But let's kind of turn to finding yourself on court TV, put yourself out there, kind of as social media as this advocate. With young kids, with everything that you're doing, how do you find the time for that, and what's that experience been like for you?
It's been really great. It's been, number one, it's nice to just be able to get out there and be on these shows. I'm honored that they asked me to be on, to talk about and advocate for people who are in these situations, and also point out to a large degree, the problems with our criminal justice system in some circumstances, where you have people who are maybe doing things to cast doubt or play games with survivors of various crimes that they commit. I mean, I think that as transparent as we can be is really the ideal way to approach these situations. And many times when I'm asked to be on those shows, it's regarding talking about high profile cases and really analyzing them and explaining to the audience why different things are happening, what different legal arguments that are being made. But more than anything, I enjoy being able to bring some of those issues to the viewer's attention. Now, to your point, in terms of the time, juggling that with being president of the bar and raising a family and work and everything else, it is challenging. It takes a lot of organization and just making time for those things, but it's doable. And I really think that the best way to approach that, at least what I have tried to do, is to ensure you're not spreading yourself too thin. Pick the things that really mean something to you and focus on those, so that you aren't trying to dabble in 100 different things at once and not able to do any of them really well.
I would imagine that you didn't, when you started your career at the state attorney's office, and Searcy even, that you didn't see yourself on court TV. So was that kind of a pinch yourself moment, or?
I didn't see myself, any of this happening. Did not have a game plan. Let's put it that way, in terms of seeing myself here. It's all just sort of unfolded as time went on. And as I said, I just kind of looked back and went with what I felt, what I was most passionate about at the time, and let that sort of be the guide. And the rest of it they were opportunities that came along little by little that presented themselves. But it has been fun. It's entertaining, to go on, and it's many of those shows. You have somebody who's presenting the counter argument. So it's always kind of exciting to go back and forth and battle it out with someone who's taking the opposing view. But it's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing it. And so that's why I keep going on. But
let's talk about your work with the Palm Beach County Bar. You worked your way up through the executive board to now become the president of that organization. So talk about your work with the Palm Beach County Bar and kind of what you've accomplished this year and what you kind of hope you're setting the stage for the future for the bar.
So that's one thing that I really hope anybody who's listening to this, that they would take away from our conversation, is just getting involved, putting yourself out there. That has made such a difference in my life and my career path. So for instance, prior to this, I had gotten involved in what we call here in Palm Beach County the young lawyer section of the bar, which, is people really starting out in their career. And I worked my way up through that until I was the president of that organization, and then transferred over to the Palm Beach County Bar, which is the organization you're referring to now. And just being involved with the bar or any professional organization, I think that stretches across professions. It doesn't have, if you're, people who are in any type of profession should certainly get involved with different professional associations, not only to just network, but to make a difference in your community. Because that gives you a sense of purpose. That gives you really a guiding light in terms of something to wake up every morning and work towards and look forward to, which is a lot of the reason that I enjoy the Bar Association so much. So it's also, of course, it's an excellent networking organization, but more than that, it really allows you to address a widespread group of problems that affect not only the community, but all of the lawyers, all of the judges, anybody in the legal profession, but really beyond that. So that is very rewarding, and it's nice to be able to participate in those important discussions. But no, it's been a wonderful opportunity to do that. We've taken on a lot this year. The year just started, but just a couple months ago. So we're still at relatively early stages, but we have some really big events planned for the next couple months, which will be wonderful. And we're focused on just growth and expanding the organization. So far, so good.
Awesome. Outside of professional organizations, I know both you and your firm take a really active role in the community. Can you talk about your community involvement and what you're passionate about?
Sure. Gosh, I would say for at least the last 10 years, I have been extremely involved in various community organizations. In terms of being on the board, I was on the executive board of Junior League for years, the Florida Association of Women Lawyers, of course, the Palm Beach County Bar Association, various charitable and professional organizations. And for the same reasons I just mentioned, it's really important because it allows you to have a seat at the table and make a difference and affect people's lives in the community. I mean, ultimately, isn't that what we're all here for? We all are serving a population. We're trying to help people in whatever your chosen career is. And so because of that, my personal feelings is that there's no better place if you're trying to affect change than to be in leadership, to be, to have a seat at the table, to be making those decisions, and to make decisions that are responsible not only for your organization, but also the community as a whole.
So important. One thing I had another rock star from your firm. Your firm is full of rock stars, but I had Saya Baker Barnes on the podcast recently. Talk about powerful female attorneys like you and Saya, and the impact that you guys are having on the local bar, the state bar, and now nationally through everything that you guys are doing.
The minute you said the word rock star, I automatically knew who you were talking about. So without even saying her name. So yes, Saya is absolutely wonderful, and just recently had the great honor of being named the incoming Florida Bar president. But most importantly she is also the first African-American woman to ever hold that prestigious role. So it's a really big deal, not only for her, but for our firm. And just as her friend and colleague, I still every day, think about what an enormous accomplishment that is. It's just very exciting to be a part of. But, she has really been a mentor to me throughout the years. And it's something that I try to take to heart and be for other people. I'll tell you just a quick story is when I was pregnant with my daughter, which is years ago, 5 years ago, without me telling anybody at work, I did not even tell her that I was pregnant. She was in my office with a laundry list of items that advice, and it was all excellent advice. And it was advice that I would have not even known that I needed at the time, having been a first-time mom at that juncture. And it all was just extremely helpful. And I've always thought back on that and said, she hears another woman in the office is pregnant, and her first thought is to go sit down and say, listen, this is all the things I wish I would have known at the time. That speaks volumes about her. And I think that anybody who is in a position where they are in leadership, where they have made it to the top or close to the top, you didn't get there alone. I mean, that's just a fact. You have colleagues, family, neighbors. There's other people there that attributed to your success. And it is something that every single one of us should always be cognizant of and remember is we have a responsibility once you make it to those different stages of your personal, professional career to help others. I mean, I firmly believe that, to help people who are coming up through the ranks. I know Saya is a very big believer of that. And I think that I have been on the receiving end of that help, over the years, just with her advice and guidance. And it's something I think is really important because that's how change is made. And that's how women rise through these organizations. That's how women become shareholders of firms that may have been largely, dominated by male shareholders over the years. That's how change is ultimately made, is by people helping others up and kind of showing them the way. So it's something that I certainly really take to heart and try to do in my day-to-day life, even, to this day.
I like to consider ourselves still young lawyers, though. I don't know that we qualify anymore, or at least we're qualifying out of. So in talking to that next generation, whether they're young lawyers, they're young business people, they're coming up through the ranks, what's that piece of advice you give them from what you've learned? I mean, you've accomplished so much. So what advice do you give to those young up-and-comers, that next generation of leaders?
First, I would say, don't try to fit yourself in a mold that's not you. I think that tends to be everyone's first move when they get, I'm supposed to look this way, I'm supposed to sound this way, I'm supposed to work my way up through your particular organization in this manner. That's just not true. And I think that by subscribing to that, it leads to a lot of frustration and unhappiness because we're all different. We have different strong suits. Some people are very well spoken and they're people who should be out front of an organization meeting people. Some people are far more comfortable doing reading, researching, and doing other tasks. And we're all different. And it's important that you identify your strong suits, number one, focus on them, and pursue your careers or your passions with that in mind. So that's one thing I would say. And you wouldn't, somebody who's comfortable talking in front of a jury and arguing probably is not well suited to be doing some type of a corporate litigation contract review work. Those two things don't really go hand in hand. And so it's important that you identify the things that you're good at and the things that make you happy, because ultimately, if you're going to succeed in any organization or in anything you set your mind to, it's going to take a lot of work. And the way to wake up every morning and be happy about that and be content and put your best foot forward is to be doing something that you genuinely enjoy and are excited to get involved in. So that would be something that I would certainly encourage people to analyze. And then one other thing, of course, people really need to, especially young professionals, get over this idea that you can't ask questions or you can't go and seek out guidance. Anytime I've ever had somebody, a younger lawyer or anybody, frankly, people in my neighborhood or just people I know in my personal life come and ask me for guidance or bounce something off me, I am happy to answer because I was once in their shoes. And I firmly believe that most people think that way and they are genuinely happy to help. But the trouble is that young people, for some reason, have this fear about extending the olive branch and making that ask. And the only person that's being hurt by doing that is you. So, it's really important to get out there, put yourself out there, extend your hand, ask questions, go introduce yourself that's up to somebody that you think is a somebody you look up to or potential mentor or somebody in your chosen field, and ask them the questions that you have so that you can save yourself a lot of time, headache, and maybe avoid some challenges. But I would certainly hope that people really take advantage of that, because it's something that most people would be happy to give advice.
Another thing I know that's important to you, other than your family too, and I know you have an event coming up that's a family kind of event, but what I want to talk to you about is, a lot of us coming up in organizations, whether you're an attorney or other professionals, we kind of talked about marketing networking. A lot of those events tend to be around, bars, happy hours, dinners, cocktails, that kind of thing. I gave up drinking. It's almost been 18 months now without alcohol. And so one thing I was happy to see with the bar, the Palm Beach County Bar, with the Florida Bar, are a lot more health and wellness initiatives. And I was so excited to see that you're having this family event where it's about bringing your family too, and it's not just attorneys hanging out by a bar. So talk to us about the importance of health and wellness in all professions, not just attorneys. I don't think we're alone in how we network and market. So talk about the importance of that health and wellness.
First of all, congratulations. That is really a big thing that you've accomplished, and I am really proud of you. And I'm so happy as your friend to see how well you're doing. I told you that before we went on, and it's exciting. You were always so wonderful, and you're always so personal, but you really shine now, and I'm so happy for you. In terms of the health and wellness, so not only are we really trying to focus on that. With the Palm Beach County Bar Association, we actually just created a health and wellness committee. I'm actually rolling out the announcement next week, so you're the first to know. But so we are doing that for the exact reason that you just identified, which is let's stop with the status quo. Let's change things. For so many years, and I don't know why this is, but a lot of high stress professions, medical, legal, finance, you name it, they tend to have a lot of professional networking events, and they all tend to focus around bars, drinking, or just other activity that, as we are all well aware of, is just not healthy. And it's really not conducive to excelling in your professional or personal life, frankly. And so let's broaden that. I think that times are changing. People's feelings about health and wellness and mental health are changing. This is something where people are much more willing to, and frankly, I think excited about taking part in now. And so because of that, we have this new committee that we just started, and we will be doing not only this new family event that's coming up, but we have a lot of active events for lawyers, such as we're doing runs, pickleball tournaments, different things to really get people out in the community and having fun, be physically active, things that are help them de-stress after, of course, long days, and something that's otherwise going to benefit them as a whole. To your point about just getting healthy, I don't know if you know this, but I actually quit drinking 6 years ago. I haven't drank in many years. And it's at the time when I made that decision, I was, from a professional standpoint, I was involved in so many things. And I believe that at that time, if my memory serves me correctly, that was actually right around the time that I was the president of the Young Lawyer section. And it just seemed like every time you turned around, every event is appetizers getting passed around, alcohol being served. And it was sort of expected that you were going to drink, talk to whoever was there, and go home. And it just takes a toll on you when you're trying to get up the next day, do work, think clearly, go to the gym. For me personally, it just wasn't conducive to accomplishing all the goals that I had set for myself. And what started off as really just being I think I'm going to just get healthy, focus more on eating healthy, going to the gym for a couple months, turned into now over 6 years. And it has just made such a profound effect it's had such a profound effect on my life in ways that I didn't even know that I was experiencing these types of downsides from probably lack of sleep, just stress from trying to juggle so much at work and everything else. But for instance, your stress levels go down, you sleep better, you eat better, you're going to the gym more. I mean, these are all very positive things. Those are the types of behaviors that are conducive to achieving your goals, not being tired, trying to, to get up early and not feel like it after a night with some type of professional event. So for me personally, it just didn't really wasn't conducive to the various goals that I had set for myself. And that's a decision I have never looked back on and regret it. And I think that the times are really changing in terms of the way people think about that. There's a lot of people that I know who are saying, hey, listen, I'd rather be healthy than keep up with, I think, the mentality that many people had for so many years, that this was some type of the expectation when you went up. No, it's not. No, it's not. This is something where you really need to be who you are and do what works for you. And for me, that's what works for me. It sounds like that's working very well for you. It's just really a mentality, and it's something that has helped me tremendously in terms of achieving my goals that I've set for myself.
Yeah, and talk about that, because what's been amazing to me in this last 18 months is that you can achieve such success without the drinking, without the partying, without the networking. So talk about that. Talk about achieving the success that you've achieved, without that side of without that side of the equation.
Looking back on it now, I really think that it hinders. It's not about can you achieve it without. I look at it a different way. That's like a dead weight attached to your ankle. I mean, to some extent, when you're trying to juggle that and do all of these great things where you're trying to make a difference in people's lives and change things in the community, those things just really, they don't go together at a certain point. At some point, if you really want to be focused, you wouldn't expect like a high performing athlete to go and intentionally handicap themselves, on a regular basis to make them groggy, not on their A game. That doesn't make any sense. So why would we do that in the legal profession or any profession? I mean, that's just my perspective here. No, it's not for everybody. Maybe some people enjoy it or don't. It doesn't affect them in those ways. I just felt like it made absolutely no sense to engage in any type of behavior. I think there's a lot of behaviors that are just maladaptive, that are behaviors that don't serve people. Why would anyone engage in behaviors like that when they're trying to excel in their chosen profession, when they're trying to rise above? There's lots of competition in any profession. If you're really trying to move forward and excel in either your personal or professional life, you want to be doing it with your whole mind, with your whole heart. And I don't think that many times the various vices that I think that people rely far too heavily on, they're not helpful. It has the opposite effect.
Last question for you. Looking forward, what do you see your impact being on the legal community, on the community as a whole? What kind of legacy do you hope to leave for your kids and for your firm, and what does that look like for you?
That's a great question, Chris. And I have no idea what the answer to that is. I don't know what the end game for me is. I can tell you this. I want to have a legacy that my kids one day look back on and are proud. That to me would be success. But in the interim, I think making changes in people's lives it's a really special opportunity that not many people have. And it's something that, I really take to heart, and I am honored to be in a position that I can do those types of things. So, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know. We'll have to see. People have certainly suggested that there be more bar involvement in terms of the Florida bar. And that's certainly a possibility, moving up into the Florida bar and continuing these service roles. I of course 100% thought about that, but I'm not sure what the future holds. We'll have to see.
Well, I know that I will stay tuned because, again, as I told you, you've really inspired me to be a better attorney, a better husband, a better father, and I'm so proud to call you a friend.
You're wonderful, Chris. Thank you very much. Again, congratulations on all of your success. You're killing it, and I could not be happier for you. I'm really, really, really happy for you.
Andrea, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. Your dedication to justice and the impact you've had on countless lives is truly inspiring. You've shown us that with passion and perseverance, we can all be a force for positive change. To our listeners, if Andrea's story moved you, we encourage you to reflect on how you can make a difference in your own community. Remember, every small act of justice counts. Until next time, keep shining your light and making a difference in the world.